Hey guys, what's going on? It's Spot the Aussie here, your favourite NRL Fantasy coach, and today we're going to be talking about the round number 9 analysis following the amazing Anzac round, which had an absolute scorcher of a finale when St George's played the Roosters and Josh Dugan sent them into overtime with a conversion when he hadn't even kicked for the last 2 seasons. And what a thriller it was. It was a great round all around. I guess you guys would have had a great time being Anzac Day out and about in the streets. Hopefully some of you played 2 up and you actually got up, because for every person that gets up, there's got to be someone that goes down, but hopefully my viewers are the ones that actually did end up getting up. If you're liking the series thus far, guys, be sure to give me a subscription on YouTube, because these videos come out every Wednesday. I know this video is one day late, that's because we were delayed for the Anzac round. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the series and found it somewhat useful. I'm going to make this video short and sweet simply because we are at a shortened round, last night having their games on Tuesday, Anzac Day being the 25th. And now it's Wednesday, although the team list got named out yesterday. We're still delayed with both last night's games not having their team list until Thursday. And that was one of the first questions I actually received on my YouTube was, why do we have all the red dots this round? And that's because 4 teams from last night, being Melbourne, St George, Roosters, and also the Warriors, aren't playing. So you'll see a red mark against Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. You'll see a red mark against Jack DeBellin, Karen McInnes, Kaufusi. This is not an NRL fantasy error at all. It simply means that they haven't been named in their team list yet, and that won't be dubbed until Thursday afternoon before kickoff. Now, both of these teams, well, I should say all 4 of these teams, both of the games are essentially played on Sunday, so you'll have ample amount of time to actually play them around in case they do get plucked from their teams. But that's going to be last minute, and it didn't appear that there were any serious injuries. I mean, Jack DeBellin copped a huge mark underneath his eye, which doesn't look that great in his interview today about the potentially playing for State of Origin in the Blues team. So I just want to quickly talk about my team. We'll make this video short and sweet. So my team this week went big. I scored 913 points, and that put me at 768th for this round. For this round in particular, 768th out of 93,000 other fantasy coaches out there. Overall, my rank is down to 3,473rd. We're climbing the ladder, or I should say going down the ladder. Technically climbing the ladder, but going down a rank. You know what I mean. Inverse proportional, if so, fact so, etc., etc. I also know that I said this was going to be a Snapchat round where I was going to take all your questions on Snapchat. Unfortunately, my phone, the sound isn't working, and I don't think I'm going to get sound working for a while. So round 12, I'm actually going to make that my Snapchat round, so you can add me on Snapchat, which is Spot the Aussie. The team went pretty big. I mean, overall, it was a great round for my players. There were a couple of kerfuffles, like BJ Leilua. We're expecting a huge round for him. Instead, he ended up scoring his lowest score that he'd scored all season. I mean, that was the whole conundrum I spoke about last week, where playing second rowers as your centers, for example, Shoni Matalia, is going to consistently score higher than a center, because centers can be, and wingers as well, can be dark horses. They're up, they're down, they can be present, they can not be there. They sometimes might not even get the ball if they're not involved. Who knows? They don't get defensive stats because most of the runs up the field are in the middle. And therefore, it's hard to put a pin on it. Sometimes, and not sometimes, you're always better off going cheaper in the season and putting cheapy players there and spending your money in the more consistent areas like your front, second row hookers, which we've spoken about so many times this season. But I'm not a parrot. Overall, great round. Crichton, absolutely amazing. 84, went up in how much? 64k. Is expected to go up probably another 40k in the next round with a break even of -4. Jack DeBellin was a little bit of a shocker. He scored 47, which isn't a bad score, but unfortunately, I'd captained him. And out of all my front second rowers, he ended up scoring the lowest other than Frankenstein and Joshy Maguire, which is a huge shame considering Corey Haruranara, CHN, I'm not even going to pretend to be able to pronounce his name. But for Corey, there was one question I just got before the weekend had kicked off saying, Aussie, what's the go? Should we trade him out? He's named at 18th man. He might not get any more game time. And my biggest piece of advice is, if you have a player that's the 18th man that simply needs one injury and then he's going to be playing and he has a negative break even, so he still has money to go, you're always better off holding him. Surely you've got other trades to make if not other trades, no trades, rather than trading a guy who's potentially going to earn you a lot of cash. And that's what he did. He ended up scoring 69. So I actually traded him. I reserved him, didn't trade him. I reserved him last minute over Kaysa Pritchard, who got 61 anyway, but I got an additional 8 points by putting the R on Corey CHN, I'm not even going to pretend to say it, and he went up 66k. Now his break even again is negative 14. So if he can produce another 50, which seems likely, then we might be seeing another 50k there easily. But overall, I think he's due for another 100k. The only problem I've got now is that he's not the greatest in buy coverage. Much the same as Sironen. Now, Sironen's been disappointing. He's not playing the game time that he was getting at the start of the season, and that's a huge red flag. I actually want to trade him out coming this round, because if you don't trade him out now, he's going to bleed cash. He's going to bleed cash, and the whole point of bringing him in earlier in the season was to gain cash. So at the moment, he's lost 13k. His break even is 50, which, as you know, he's only hit 50 once. So expect him to go down in cash. The other thing that you want to consider is that the Manly players have terrible buy coverage. Let's go back to our team. And Manly players, now I've actually already traded him out for Nathan Brown, who I think is an absolute gun. But Manly players, looking at Frankenstein, they don't play round 12 and 15, which are essentially the first two buy rounds, or the two major buy rounds out of the three. So I'm opting to get rid of those guys when I can and when they've peaked. And the best way to understand is when they've peaked is by looking at their break even and then looking at their average. Frankenstein's break even, 15. His average is, well, last three games have been 46. His average is 35 anyway. So he still probably has another 3 to 4 games to go before he kind of hits his peak, which means we'd be trading him out about round 11 and then bringing whoever in, someone who's good for buy coverage. And that's what I've done here. I've traded out Sironen. I've brought in Nathan Brown. Parramatta, the one and only team who are playing all the major buy rounds. So you want to make sure you jump on as many players as you possibly can without, fracturing your team. You don't want to be bringing in, your Kirasum Aviavas who aren't going to be scoring well simply because they're going to be buy players. It's just something to keep up your sleeve. We spoke about last week, making sure you've got players who are going to be playing, but also doing a good job. And Nathan Brown's been able to prove that. If you look at his scores in the last game log, 59, 53, 60, 64. Now, he could go down. He could go back down to getting the 40s. But it looks at this rate, he's going to be playing more than 50 minutes on an average, and with or without injury. So we know that he's probably going to be getting 40s as a minimum moving forward. So I think he's there for the long run. So I've made that trade in cohesion with the fact that I'm preparing for my buy rounds, and he's as cheap as he's going to get. At the moment, 452k, round 9, break even is 31. He probably only has one more price rise, and that's probably only going to be about 15k, and he's probably going to sit there and go up and down, up and down. But I think if you can afford Nathan Brown now, and you're looking for someone who's going to give you good minutes, plus his dual position now, because essentially he's playing at lock. So his second row and front row, great coverage. Grab him. That's my tip of the day. Other big news is that I've traded out Cotric for Hayne. Cotric, if we have a look at his last score, I think was a 19, which he went down 1k, and his break even is 35. Which isn't great news because he averages 31 and for the last 3 games and 33.9 overall. But that's because he's a winger. He's going to be up and down. Look at his scores again. We spoke about Leilua. Look at his last 3 scores, 16, 36, 41. His biggest score is 59. So I've traded him out. Now, the argument here is, why wouldn't you keep him till round 12? I think there's a better prospect in bringing in Jarryd Hayne, who's only 214k. He's going to be the cheapest he's ever been all season. His break-even's only 16, so I expect him to go up in dollar value soon. So that's why I'm going to be holding him. Other trades that you can consider, Kane Elgey. Now, Elgey's named on the bench at number 14. I'd prefer him not to play at all, because if he plays on the bench, starting for whatever reason, he's most likely going to lose money. Even with 2 tries, Elgey only scored 33, which is terrible. I mean, it's so bad. He misses so many tackles, it's not even funny. Who do you want to trade him to? A lot of people looking at bringing in Jaelen Feeney, and I highly advise going with Jaelen Feeney. When he played Parramatta around 12 last season, he ended up scoring 12 in 80 minutes playing in the half position. He missed a lot of tackles. We've seen him at fullback. He was terrible there. We don't know how long he's going to be there. Now, the coach Nathan Brown had actually put Shoni Mataudia in the halves position, which was an absolute fail for fantasy coaches because we'd much rather him play in the second row, and he didn't score as well, and then eventually brought Jaelen Feeney in, who ended up scoring 8. Here's the big kicker for me, right? Feeney's not up to par. Now, the other argument is that, well, he's going to do better than last year because he's gone up in size and he's put on 6 kilos or whatever it is. I'm not buying into it. I think if you're going to buy him, huge risk with little upside. 138k at the moment. Break even is 21. Playing for the Knights, who don't play around 12 and 15. I think you're trading into a dead end. You'd much rather be... If you're going to make that trade, you may as well trade into Jai Field for 128k and save at the moment of 18k. It's not worth bringing in Feeney and then looking to trade him out for another cheapie or another half that's cheaper because there's not many out there. In fact, there's none. The other one that I was considering was Brown. For Mahananu Brown from the Sharks. Only because if I trade him in now and Maloney gets the go-ahead to play Origin, Famanu Brown plays the 2 first major buy rounds, which is going to be great, but I couldn't do it. My priority trades were getting rid of Sironen and Cotric, purely because they're going to leak cash, and purely because I wanted to make the trades. I wanted to bring in Hayne. Well, I wanted to bring in Brown, but I couldn't bring in Brown without down-trading Cotric. So it's kind of a two-way trade. I'm down to 19 trades, which is starting to get a little thin. Remember, you've got 3 trades for every Origin round, so when we get to round 11, going into round 12, you have 3 trades to make. My buy coverage is looking pretty good. 13 players on a buy around this round, but that doesn't include Origin players. Now, Josh Maguire will definitely play Origin, so he'd be out round 12, so that actually makes it 14. So realistically, we're looking at 11 players right now, and that doesn't include the players who may get injured. A big thing from last year is that if you don't have good coverage for buys, like if you don't have 15 players at least, you're going to be scratching the surface to try and score a good round of points, because at the end of the day, you'll have last minute injuries and you've only got a limited amount of trades when it comes to Origin time. So I'm trying to put myself in the best position possible to have at least 15 players playing around that round. It might be impossible considering the teams that are playing, but at the moment, that's how I'm looking. Alright, so another question got from Hyman Busters. Now that Ponga's time looks to coming to an end, is it worth trading to Hayne or Holmes? I've got all 3. In fact, Ponga, break even at 4, hold. Definitely hold. The fact is, Ponga's amazing. Look at all the games that he plays. Every time he gets on, plays the 80 minutes, he's scoring at least 40 points or thereabouts. Anything above that is a huge bonus. And when you're playing in the wing fullback position, you're scoring that well. Definite keepers in my books. Who knows when Lachlan Coote's coming back? I hate the games that coaches play because at the end of the day, Coote was like, oh, we're going to be playing Coote this round, we might not play Ponga. That was never the intention. They brought in Ponga and then we never heard of Coote again, and I hated that game. Luckily, I actually made the trade that round, brought him in, and he's paid dividends for me. And what other percentage of fantasy coaches out there that has paid dividends? 42.82%, which is actually a really good upside, considering that almost half of you guys own him. So pat on the back to you guys. But when you've got a player like that, and half of us already own him, that's not that big of an upside for us. It's players like when you've got, for example, Crichton, who only, is only owned by 10% and scores 84 points. That's when you see the upside. That's when you see you do much better than the other coaches. So your pods are going to make the difference at the end of the day. Now, if Ponga got injured tomorrow, who would I trade him to? A lot of considerations. I mean, Valentine Holmes is a great trade because he has the buy coverage around 12 and 15. Billy Slater's another one because he's undervalued but could play Origin. And, I'm actually not that big a fan of I'm not that big fan of Billy because he's burnt me so many times in fantasy before. Jarryd Hayne's the other one. Jarryd Hayne, well undervalued. 214k at the moment. Could bring him in. Might play Origin. Not great for buys. Holmes is probably your best bet. They're about the same price, but I think Ponga is definitely a hold for now. I got another question from Random asking, is Crichton, I say Crichton because it's Scottish, but I know a lot of you guys out there are going to say it's Crichton. People love that. Is he a must-have? Now, he's gone up 200k, and luckily I bought him 2 or 3 rounds ago, and in that time he's gone up over 100k, so that's great news for me. Is he a must-have? I'm going to say yes, because it looks like he's going to be playing the majority of the minutes in the second row. It looks like he's made that position his own. It looks like the the actual Rabbitohs team aren't carrying many second rollers on the bench as we speak. And the fact that George Burgess has been, booted off the team because of another, shoulder charge issue means that the other second row, Cole Sutton, is actually going to be playing prop. So I highly suspect that we could consider Angus Crichton to keep scoring the 50s plus with the rate that he's going. Is he a must-have? I'm going to say yes, because at the end of the day, the amazing bye coverage he has playing for the Rabbitohs. Look at that. He plays the first two major bye rounds and the third one. So we've got round 12, 15, and 18, which is going to be huge. You need players like that, and that's going to be the difference. I'm actually considering captaining him this week. That's how big of a play that I'm willing to make. I love captaining guys who I know are going to be playing 80 minutes. Sometimes it's not possible, like Jack DeBellum. Didn't play him for the full 80 minutes. He ended up playing, I think, 76-ish. Let me have a look at that. 76. He played 76. He scored 47. It was a dud round for DeBellum, considering what he usually averages, but that's the way it kind of goes. I think if you can get Crichton in your team still, do it. He's still going to go up in value. I mean, he could go up another 50k, and you don't want to be on the opposite end when you miss out on that. We know that he's got the starting spot locked in, so highly consider bringing him in your team, ASAP. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up there because this is a very short video considering the time we've got between the two rounds for round number 9 coming up now. And the big thing I want to say is thank you so much to everyone who supported me. My videos are averaging about 1,000 hits every week now, and I love doing this. This is a big thing for me. It's a huge hobby. I love the fact the comments that I get on Reddit, the comments that I've been getting on YouTube. I love replying to your messages on Facebook, including in all the Facebook fantasy groups that I'm involved in. It's been a huge thing. I absolutely love it. The fact that I now have just over 1,500 subscribers, I think I've got 1,700 or something odd like that. That is huge. I'm going to try to hit 2,000 by, I don't know, say round 15. But I just want to thank you guys so much. It's been entertaining. I love doing this. I love being involved. I love trying to give advice. I love hearing back from you guys because sometimes some of the moves I make aren't very crystal clear, and it's only when someone from the audience actually questions one of the moves I'm making do I realize, hang on a minute, that's actually a really stupid move. Maybe we should be doing this way instead. But I just want to thank you guys yet again for all the support. It's been absolutely amazing. This has been Spot the Aussie, your favorite NRL fantasy coach, or hopefully your favorite NRL fantasy coach. Be sure to subscribe and like the video. And remember, keep adding me on Snapchat. Send me in your Snapchats for round 12. Maybe wait till after round 11. That way I can replay them all in one hit when I'm doing a fun, humorous video for our fantasy. It's been great. I'll talk to you guys soon, and I'll check you out. And good luck for this week. Whoosh.